But as we get started this morning, we want to define what coaching is and to be really clear about that.
So you've just been through some coaching. You've just been coached and been a coach. And you're on a coach training. So what is coaching? If we're to think about what the definition is of coaching, what is coaching? So as we think about coaching, one of the first things that we like to do is to actually distinguish what coaching, first of all, is not. And one of the first things that we're going to look at is that of something that's often confused with coaching, is that of the field and the domain of consulting. Now, consulting is when we have expertise in a particular domain. Very often it's inside business or can be other areas of life, where we go in and do some form of needs analysis to be able to diagnose some type of problem, and then our role as the consultant is to create a strategy or some type of solution for handling whatever that is. We have business coaches, business consultants, marketing consultants. In our personal life, a doctor is an example of a consultant, isn't it? We go to the doctor, they ask us some questions, they make a diagnosis and give us a prescription. And that's their solution to whatever it is. Inside of consulting, the skill inherent in consulting is actually the skill to give advice.
So if you're going to be an excellent consultant, you give advice. You have expert knowledge of content.
One of the distinctions about giving advice and being a consultant is usually that person with the expertise also takes responsibility. They're paid for delivering a certain outcome and they take responsibility for that outcome. So they give advice on content.
So they're responsible for giving advice on content. How many consultants, how many have worked as a consultant and you have some expertise advice that people pay you to consult them with that, to give them advice? And you're responsible to some extent for the outcome. Okay.
So for you, you've been paid to be able to have the opinion, haven't you? You've been paid to be able to draw conclusions, paid to create an opinion, and then to give advice based on that opinion.
And so if you're coming from consulting, the challenge of coaching, and this will be such a challenge for you, is to hold your tongue. We got some tongue claps in the back.
They hurt.
Because coaching is not consulting. So what is coaching?
Another domain often confused with that of coaching is the domain of mentoring. Now, mentoring and consulting have some similarities in such that a mentor usually has expertise in a particular domain. Usually it's industry specific, and sometimes we have mentors who have a lot of life experience and might be a life mentor as such. Mentoring is where an individual creates a relationship with their protege. And in that role, this mentor with more experience helps that protege navigate the pitfalls, go through the experiences and not have to go through all the learning that the mentor's gone through. The mentor will mentor them to the level of competency and expertise that they've achieved. The skill that we use to define mentoring as different is the skill to guide. Usually a mentor uses their own personal stories and their own experiences to guide the individual to that level of expertise.
Has anybody here ever been hired or contracted, maybe not for money, to be a mentor to someone, to guide someone in a certain area? Because you've been there, you've done that, you got the t-shirt. And they saw the t-shirt, so they wanted you to guide you there.
How many have actually... Who you've been in the other role?
You've had a mentor. Okay. Someone took you under his or her wing and kind of showed you the ropes of an area. And that gave you a head start. That accelerated your learning. And if coaching is not mentoring, and it's not, if coaching is not guiding and mentoring because you've been there, you know it, you've got that kind of expertise, then what is coaching?
Another domain is that of training that is not coaching. Now, training is basically being able to teach another a particular skill. So it's imparting knowledge, again some content, and again the trainer has their own standard and own agenda that they're going to come from. And then they're going to impart that knowledge, and hopefully it's skills-based training, and you're going to be developed to develop some competency in certain skills. So the distinction of the skill inside of in training is to teach.
So a lot of you are teachers or trainers. How many are teachers or trainers? You teach some content, you have some expert knowledge and awareness of content or of skill, and you teach and train it. The difficulty for you in this training will be if you see, you'll have glasses on looking for skill deficiency. You should, you must have this skill, and I know this skill.
I'll teach you. It's the fastest route. We'll just cut out any of this coaching. That's going to take too much time.
Put the questions and drawing it out of you.
I'll just teach you it. We'll be done with it.
Much quicker. So the difficulty will be avoiding and stepping back from. So if coaching is not training, teaching, then what is coaching?
The next
I get
one
to ask all those rhetorical questions. I love that.
Is that of therapy. Now, as we know, there are very many different disciplines in the field of therapy. Being more generalised in our definition, we're going to talk about therapy being about helping to heal and fix things that are not working well, things that are so-called broken, healing the hurts from the past, being able to deal with things that need to be fixed. So when we think of therapy, we actually think the skill that's inside of therapy is actually fixing things.
And what we're fixing, for the most part, from a therapeutic standpoint, is a person's sense of self, their ego, getting their ego to be strong enough and solid enough, sense of self, to face reality, getting them up to where they're okay, getting them up to average.
Where they've got the ego strength to be able to deal with things.
And we've mentioned it several times already this morning. Coaching is not therapy. Therapy is putting on the glasses of diagnosis and looking at it from the standpoint of psychopathology. And so those of us who come from therapy, how many come from a therapeutic background? You've had some therapy training and you do some therapy. The problem for us going into coaching, and I think people who come from the therapy background, the mental health background, as I do, have the hardest time learning coaching because we tend to see people as having problems and being deficient and being broken. And even with NLP background, even with solution-focused therapy background, we still look at it from problem focus rather than solution focus.
So if coaching is not doing that, and it's not giving advice, it's not guiding, and it's not teaching, what do you think coaching is?
Before you answer that, last year in Denver, 2 years ago in Denver, the research committee of the ICF, the International Federal Coach Federation, they had a 3-day research program before the Denver ICF conference that year. And in that conference, somebody drew this diagram, but they didn't draw it quite like this. They had each of these circles coming out to the middle, and as each of these circles came out to the middle, they said the point of intersect is coaching. And this was a PhD who was presenting coaching as the mixture of, the right mixture of a little consulting, a little coaching, a little consulting, a little therapy, a little mentoring, and when you put all that together, which then would say there's no uniqueness of coaching. There's no field that's separate. It is subsumed under all these other 4 fields, and that was what he was presenting. This is the argument in the field of coaching today, and I think it'll go on for the next 10 years. What is coaching? And our definition is very different.
So as you can hear, we actually make a very big distinction. That's why we've drawn the diagram that we've drawn in this way, that coaching is separate, apart from, and different to all of these different domains here. So if it's different to, and it's not an overlap of all of them, what is the skill inside of coaching? What is a definition of coaching?
This will be really critical, especially as you sell your coaching skills in businesses, to CEOs, to individuals. As you identify, here's the area that I work, and this is why it is different from and not the same as therapy, consulting, training. If you need training, if you need a skill, go get training. If you need therapy, here's something different. And your ability to make these distinctions will be the ability to handle the professional boundaries of the field.
So, what are some examples of the definition?
It's more of a facilitation of their own learning and understanding and getting information and transferring to
Okay, so that is the very skill that we see is at the heart of coaching, which is to facilitate. So we facilitate and mobilise internal and external resources to an agreed outcome for self-actualisation. We mobilise internal and external resources to an agreed outcome. So coaching is to facilitate internal and external resources to an agreed outcome, thereby mobilising someone's potentials for self-actualisation.
So with this definition then, the coach is not the expert about the client or the client's content. The coach is the expert in his or her content, his or her values, his or her beliefs, his or her visions, his or her agenda and what they want to accomplish. So the agreed outcome is the client's, and that makes the coach's role and skills, the skills and role of facilitating and mobilizing. So the more you know about how to facilitate the process and to mobilize resources to that outcome for self-actualization, to go from average now, from okay to mastery, to opening up, unleashing those potentials, unleashing those possibilities.